Listen closely, because this message is not for the version of you that still needs everyone to understand you. It is for the version of you that is finally beginning to realize that you were never ordinary. If you could see yourself the way heaven sees you, if you could understand the strength hidden inside your silence, the purpose behind your separation, and the power created through everything you survived, you would stop wasting precious time explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You would stop defending your heart to people who judge you without knowing your story. You would stop chasing approval from people who only recognize value after it becomes impossible to ignore. There is something different about you, and perhaps that difference has made your journey lonely at times. You have been questioned, underestimated, rejected, talked about, and perhaps even treated as though your dreams were too big for you. But what they called strange may be the very thing that makes you exceptional. What they considered weakness may have been your greatest source of strength. What they thought was your ending may have been the beginning of your transformation. You are entering a season where you don't need to announce what God is doing in your life. You simply need to walk in it. Let people wonder. Let them misunderstand. Let them underestimate you if they choose. Your assignment is not to convince everyone of your worth. Your assignment is to become everything you were created to be. Because when you truly understand that you are set apart, you stop arguing with the people who cannot see your vision. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for your growth. You stop shrinking your light so someone else can feel comfortable standing beside you. And most importantly, you stop giving your energy to people who have already decided what they want to believe about you. Your life is about to become the explanation. Your consistency will answer the criticism. Your peace will answer the chaos. Your character will answer the accusations. Your growth will answer the rejection. So take a deep breath, release the need to be understood, and prepare yourself for this truth. You were never called to spend your life proving who you are. You were called to become it. You were never meant to fit into every room. There comes a moment in life when you finally understand that not every room was designed for you, and that realization can change everything. For years, you may have believed that acceptance was the evidence of your worth. You tried to explain your intentions, soften your personality, hide your ambitions, and adjust your dreams so other people would feel comfortable around you. You thought that if you could just communicate yourself clearly enough, eventually everyone would understand your heart. But some people were never confused about you. They simply were not prepared to accept what they could not control, understand, or become. And that is where your freedom begins. You were never created to fit into every room. You were created to carry something unique into the rooms that are actually connected to your purpose. There is a difference between being rejected and being redirected. Sometimes a closed door is not proof that you are unworthy. It is proof that your destiny cannot be built in that environment. You can spend years begging for a seat at a table that was never assigned to you, only to discover that another table was being prepared, where your presence would not need an explanation. Stop measuring your value by who invites you, who praises you, who notices you, or who understands you. Your value existed before their recognition. A diamond does not become valuable because somebody finally discovers it. It was valuable while it was hidden beneath layers of earth. In the same way, your potential does not become real because someone applauds it. It becomes real when you have the courage to develop it, protect it, and walk faithfully toward it. There will be people who misunderstand your silence and call it arrogance. There will be people who misunderstand your confidence and call it pride. There will be people who misunderstand your boundaries and call them selfishness. There will be people who misunderstand your ambition and call it unrealistic. Let them. You cannot spend your entire life correcting every inaccurate opinion formed about you. If you keep stopping your journey to answer every voice behind you, you will never reach the destination in front of you. Sometimes maturity means realizing that not every accusation deserves a response, and not every misunderstanding deserves an explanation. Your energy is precious. Your attention is precious. Your time is precious. You cannot keep donating all three to people who have no intention of understanding you. There is power in walking away from the need to be accepted everywhere. When you stop trying to belong everywhere, you begin discovering where you actually belong. You start recognizing relationships where you can breathe instead of perform. You discover environments where your growth is celebrated rather than threatened. You find people who do not require you to become smaller before they can feel comfortable around you. And suddenly, What once felt like loneliness begins to feel like preparation. You realize that some seasons of isolation were teaching you how to hear your own voice. Some separations were teaching you how to stand without applause. Some disappointments were teaching you not to place your identity in human approval. Some closed doors were protecting you from environments that would have slowly convinced you to abandon yourself. This is why you must stop forcing yourself into places where your spirit constantly feels suffocated. You do not have to prove that you belong where you are continually disrespected. You do not have to convince people to value what they repeatedly choose to overlook. You do not have to chase people who only appreciate you when you are useful to them. And you certainly do not have to apologize for becoming stronger, wiser, more disciplined, and more intentional. Growth changes your standards. Growth changes your conversations. Growth changes what you tolerate. Growth changes the people you can walk with. That does not make you better than anyone else. It means you are becoming more responsible for the life you have been given. So if certain people no longer understand you, do not panic. If certain rooms no longer feel like home, do not force yourself to stay. If your journey looks different from everyone around you, do not assume you are lost. Sometimes the path of purpose is supposed to look different. You were never promised that everyone would understand your calling. You were never promised that everyone would celebrate your transformation. You were never promised that everyone would recognize your value before you recognized it yourself. But you can make a promise to yourself. You will no longer abandon who you are simply to maintain acceptance. You will walk with humility, but you will not shrink. You will love people, but you will not live for their approval. You will listen to wisdom, but you will not surrender your identity to every opinion. And when the world tells you that you need to fit in, remember this. Your greatest strength may be the very difference you once tried to hide. You do not need every room. You need the right one. You do not need everyone. You need the right people. And you do not need to explain the person you are becoming. Become so deeply rooted in your purpose that misunderstanding can no longer move you. Stop explaining what your life will eventually prove. There is a season in your life when you have to make a powerful decision. Are you going to keep explaining yourself, or are you finally going to let your life speak for you? Because the truth is, you can explain your heart 1,000 times and still be misunderstood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. You can tell people your intentions, show them your loyalty, defend your character, explain your decisions, reveal your struggles, and still find yourself standing before people who have already written a story about you in their minds. And at some point you have to stop participating in that conversation. Not because you are guilty, not because you have something to hide, but because your peace is more valuable than proving yourself to people who have already chosen not to see you clearly. There is tremendous power in allowing time to reveal what words never could. People may question your decisions today, but they cannot question the results forever. They may laugh at your vision today, but they cannot laugh at the transformation forever. They may doubt your ability today, but they cannot deny your consistency forever. Your life has a way of becoming evidence. Every disciplined morning, every difficult decision, every moment when you chose integrity over convenience, every time you kept moving when nobody applauded you, every tear you wiped away in private, every disappointment you survived without becoming bitter, those moments are writing a story that eventually becomes impossible to ignore. You do not need to announce every chapter while you are still living it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is work quietly, grow privately, pray deeply, and let the finished product introduce you. We live in a world that constantly encourages us to explain ourselves. Explain why you changed. Explain why you walked away. Explain why you became quieter. Explain why you no longer tolerate certain behavior. Explain why your priorities are different. Explain why you are chasing a dream nobody else understands. But you must realize something. People who genuinely care about you will seek understanding, while people who simply want control will demand explanations. There is a difference. You can communicate with people without becoming imprisoned by their opinions. You can clarify something once without spending your entire life defending it. You can respectfully say, "This is the direction I have chosen," and then continue walking. Your destiny does not require a committee vote. Your purpose does not need unanimous approval. And your future does not become less valuable because someone cannot see it yet. Sometimes people judge your present because they cannot imagine your future. They see the seed and criticize it because they cannot see the tree. They see the struggle and assume it defines you because they cannot see the strength being built inside you. They see your silence and assume you have nothing to say, when in reality, you may simply have learned that not every conversation deserves your voice. Let them assume. Let them speculate. Let them create theories. You have more important work to do. Build, heal, learn, grow, develop your character, strengthen your faith, protect your peace, improve your craft, take care of the responsibilities in front of you. Become so committed to your growth that you no longer have time to monitor who misunderstands you, because there is a hidden cost to constantly explaining yourself. Every minute spent proving your worth is a minute you could have spent increasing it. Every hour spent arguing with critics is an hour you could have spent building the future they said was impossible. Every ounce of emotional energy spent seeking validation is energy that could have been invested in your purpose. This does not mean you should become cold or arrogant. It means you should become secure. There is a difference between humility and insecurity. Humility allows you to listen, learn, apologize when necessary, and acknowledge when you are wrong. Insecurity makes you desperate to control what everyone thinks about you. You do not need that burden anymore. If you make a mistake, correct it. If you hurt someone, apologize. If you are wrong, admit it. But if you have acted with integrity and someone still chooses to misunderstand you, release them from your courtroom. You are not required to defend yourself forever. Let your consistency become your testimony. Let your patience become your testimony. Let your character become your testimony. Let the way you treat people become your testimony. Let the life you build become the loudest answer you ever give. One day, the same people who questioned your direction may look at your life and finally understand why you could not stay where they wanted you to remain. They may never admit they were wrong, and that is okay. Your victory does not require their confession. Your peace does not require their apology. Your purpose does not require their permission. Keep walking, keep building, keep becoming, because eventually, you will reach a place where you realize that the person you were desperately trying to explain was never the person you needed to convince. You needed to believe in yourself. And once you do, something extraordinary happens. The noise becomes smaller, the criticism becomes weaker, and your purpose becomes louder. So stop explaining every move, stop defending every decision, stop begging people to see what you already know God placed inside you. Your life is writing the explanation, and one day, the results will speak so clearly that words will no longer be necessary. Being set apart often means walking alone. There is a strange kind of loneliness that comes when you are becoming someone you were never before. It is not always the loneliness of having nobody around you. Sometimes it is the loneliness of realizing that the people around you no longer understand the person you are becoming. You can sit in a crowded room and still feel completely alone because your vision has changed, your priorities have changed, your standards have changed, and your heart is no longer satisfied with the things that once distracted you. At first, you may wonder what is wrong with you. You may ask yourself why conversations that once entertained you now feel empty, why certain relationships suddenly feel exhausting, and why you no longer feel comfortable chasing the approval you once desperately wanted. But perhaps nothing is wrong with you. Perhaps you are simply growing beyond an old version of yourself. Being set apart does not always feel powerful in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like losing people. Sometimes it feels like being misunderstood. Sometimes it feels like walking a road without a crowd cheering you forward. But there are seasons when solitude becomes the classroom where your deepest strength is developed. When you are constantly surrounded by voices, it is difficult to hear your own. When everyone has an opinion about your life, you can forget what you actually believe. When you are always trying to fit into someone else's expectations, you can slowly lose connection with your own purpose. That is why certain seasons become quieter, not because you have been forgotten, but because you are being taught how to stand without applause. You are learning how to make decisions without needing 10 people to agree. You are learning how to trust your convictions when nobody else can see what you see. You are learning how to continue when encouragement disappears. And that kind of strength cannot be developed in comfort. There are lessons that only solitude can teach you. It teaches you that your identity cannot depend on a relationship. It teaches you that your confidence cannot depend on compliments. It teaches you that your purpose cannot depend on popularity. It teaches you that peace is not something you receive from everybody around you. Sometimes peace is something you protect by choosing carefully who gets access to you. You may have spent years believing that having more people around you meant you were more successful, more loved, or more valuable. But maturity teaches you that quantity and quality are not the same thing. A crowded circle can still be empty. A small circle can contain extraordinary loyalty, wisdom, encouragement, and truth. Sometimes God removes certain connections, not because those people are necessarily evil, but because the season they belong to has ended. Not every person who walks with you at one stage is supposed to walk with you into every stage. Some people are companions for a chapter, not the entire book. And when you understand this, you stop treating every departure like a catastrophe. You begin asking a different question. What is this season trying to teach me? Maybe the silence is teaching you discipline. Maybe the distance is teaching you discernment. Maybe the rejection is teaching you self-respect. Maybe the loneliness is teaching you dependence on something deeper than human approval. Maybe the empty space around you is being created because there needs to be room for something new. Do not rush to fill every empty space. Sometimes the empty is sacred. Sometimes you need to sit with yourself long enough to discover what you truly want. Sometimes you need to become comfortable walking alone before you can recognize the right people to walk beside you. And remember, walking alone does not mean walking without God, without purpose, or without hope. It means refusing to follow the crowd simply because the crowd is moving. There is courage in saying, I know where I am going, even if nobody comes with me. There is courage in choosing character when shortcuts are available. There is courage in protecting your peace when drama is calling your name. There is courage in pursuing your dream when people around you cannot understand why it matters so much. You do not need everyone to understand your assignment. The people who are meant to recognize it will eventually recognize it, and the people who are not may never understand it, and that is okay. Your responsibility is not to force understanding. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to what you know you are called to become. So if your circle has become smaller, do not immediately assume your life has become smaller. If the noise has decreased, do not assume your importance has decreased. If some people walked away, do not automatically believe you have been abandoned. Sometimes separation is preparation. Sometimes solitude is strengthening. Sometimes being alone is the very environment where you finally discover how powerful you are without an audience. One day, you may look back at this quiet season and realize it was not punishment. It was preparation. The people you thought you needed were not the people who carried you through the transformation. You did. You learned, you endured, you grew, you became stronger. And when the right people eventually arrive, they will meet a version of you that no longer begs to belong. You will know your worth, protect your peace, honor your purpose, and understand that walking alone for a season was never proof that you were forgotten. It was proof that you were being prepared to walk differently. Your uniqueness is your hidden advantage. There is something about you that you may have spent years trying to hide, change, or apologize for, without realizing that the very thing you considered your weakness could become your greatest advantage. Maybe you think differently. Maybe you feel things deeply. Maybe you notice details other people overlook. Maybe you refuse to follow the crowd when something inside you tells you that the crowd is going in the wrong direction. Maybe your journey has been filled with experiences that forced you to mature earlier, become stronger, or develop wisdom that could never have been taught in a classroom. Whatever it is, stop treating your uniqueness like a problem that needs to be fixed. You were not created to become a copy of somebody else. There is something powerful about being able to stand confidently in your own identity without constantly comparing your journey to another person's. Comparison has stolen too many dreams because people spend so much time looking at someone else's chapter that they forget to write their own. You look at their success and wonder why yours has not arrived. You look at their confidence and question your own. You look at their opportunities and assume you are behind. But what you cannot see is the full story behind their progress, just as they cannot see the full story behind yours. Your path has its own timing, its own lessons, its own battles, and its own victories. The things that make your journey different may actually be preparing you for something that requires a different kind of strength. Think about a fingerprint. No matter how many people exist in the world, your fingerprint carries a pattern that belongs uniquely to you. Your purpose can be like that. Your voice may resemble others, but your experience is yours. Your lessons are yours. Your perspective is yours. Your story is yours. And when you stop trying to imitate someone else's life, you finally create space to discover what makes yours extraordinary. Your uniqueness is not simply about appearance, personality, talent, or creativity. It is also about the way you survive what should have broken you. It is about the wisdom you gained from disappointment. It is about the compassion you developed because you know what pain feels like. It is about the discipline you built when nobody was watching. It is about the courage you discovered after being pushed into situations you never expected to face. Every experience has contributed something to the person you are becoming. Even the chapters you wish you could erase may contain lessons that will eventually help someone else survive their own difficult season. Never underestimate what your scars have taught you. There are people who will one day need the wisdom you are gaining right now. There are people who will be encouraged because you refuse to give up. There are people who will find hope because you decided that your past would not become your identity. This is why you cannot keep allowing other people's opinions to define you. Some people will only see your unusual qualities as long as they cannot understand them. They may call you too ambitious, too quiet, too intense, too emotional, too independent, too different, too complicated. But remember, labels are often created by people trying to describe what they do not understand. You do not have to become smaller because someone is uncomfortable with your growth. You do not have to hide your intelligence because someone feels threatened by it. You do not have to suppress your dreams because someone else is afraid to pursue theirs. You do not have to dim your personality just because somebody prefers you when you are easier to control. Walk with humility, but never confuse humility with self-erasure. Be kind, but do not become invisible. Be generous, but do not abandon your boundaries. Listen to advice, but do not surrender your identity to every opinion. There is a difference between being teachable and being easily influenced. The world does not need another imitation. It needs people who are courageous enough to bring their authentic gifts forward. Your uniqueness becomes an advantage when you stop fighting it and start developing it. If you think differently, sharpen your thinking. If you have a creative gift, develop your craft. If you have leadership potential, build your character. If you have wisdom from difficult experiences, use it to help others. If you have a vision that seems unusual, learn everything you can about turning that vision into reality. Do not simply celebrate being different. Cultivate what makes you different. Potential becomes powerful when it is disciplined. Talent becomes meaningful when it is developed. Vision becomes transformational when it is supported by action. So stop asking, why am I not like them? Start asking, what can I become with what I have been given? That question can change everything. You are not behind because your journey looks different. You are not less valuable because your timeline is unfamiliar. You are not insignificant because people have failed to recognize what you carry. Sometimes the world recognizes uniqueness only after it has produced undeniable results. But you cannot wait for recognition before believing in yourself. You have to build before the applause. You have to practice before the platform. You have to believe before the evidence appears. One day, the quality you once wished you could change may become the very quality people admire most. The difference you once tried to hide may become the signature of your success. The story you once felt ashamed to tell may become the testimony that gives someone else courage. So stand tall in who you are. Keep learning, keep growing, keep refining your gifts. You were never meant to be a perfect copy of somebody else's greatness. You were given your own combination of experiences, abilities, perspective, and purpose for a reason. Stop trying to fit into someone else's design when your greatest power may be found in becoming completely, unapologetically, and intentionally yourself. When you know who you are, you stop chasing approval. There is a moment in your journey when something inside you becomes stronger than the need to be accepted, praised, understood, or validated by everyone around you. You begin to realize that you have spent too much of your life trying to convince people that you are worthy of respect, love, opportunity, and recognition. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering whether you said the right thing. You change your behavior because someone criticized you. You question your dreams because someone laughed at them. You become exhausted, trying to make everyone comfortable with the person you are becoming. But eventually, you reach a point where you say, I know who I am and I no longer need everyone else to confirm it. That is not arrogance, that is maturity. There is a profound difference between confidence and pride. Pride says, I am better than everyone. Confidence says, I know my value, and I do not need to diminish yours to recognize mine. When you become secure in your identity, you stop competing with people who were never your competition. You stop measuring your progress against somebody else's timeline. You stop chasing people who only notice you when you become useful. You stop begging for invitations into rooms where your presence is tolerated rather than respected. You begin understanding that your worth was never determined by who chose you. Rejection may hurt, but rejection cannot rewrite your identity. Criticism may sting, but criticism cannot decide your destiny. Someone else's inability to recognize your potential does not make your potential disappear. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough occurs when you stop trying to prove that you deserve a place and start building something so meaningful that you no longer need to ask for permission to occupy it. Think about how much energy you have spent trying to control people's opinions. You cannot control them. You can explain yourself perfectly, and someone can still misunderstand you. You can treat someone with kindness, and they can still speak against you. You can give your best, and someone can still decide that your best is not enough. If your peace depends on everyone having a positive opinion of you, you have handed control of your emotions to people who may not even understand your story. Take that control back. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to outgrow relationships. You are allowed to change your priorities. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to pursue a dream that nobody else understands. You are allowed to become a different version of yourself after learning from your past. Growth is not betrayal. Boundaries are not hatred. Silence is not weakness. Walking away is not always defeat. Sometimes walking away is the clearest evidence that you have finally learned what your peace is worth. When you know who you are, you stop performing for people. You no longer need to exaggerate your success to feel successful. You do not need to make everyone jealous to feel powerful. You do not need to prove that you are happy. You simply live. You work. You grow. You pray. You learn. You serve. You build. You become. And because your identity is no longer dependent on applause, you become incredibly difficult to manipulate. People cannot control you with compliments because you do not desperately need them. People cannot control you with rejection because you know rejection is not a verdict on your worth. People cannot control you with gossip because you understand that someone else's opinion is not your identity. People cannot control you with comparison because you have stopped measuring your life by somebody else's ruler. This is freedom. Real freedom is not getting everyone to like you. Real freedom is becoming so grounded that whether they like you or not, you remain committed to living with integrity. You can still listen. You can still learn. You can still admit when you are wrong. You can still apologize when necessary. But you no longer collapse because somebody disapproves of you. You understand that being loved by everyone is impossible, and being respected by everyone is unnecessary. Your response